morning. Welcome back to the Retirement Report. I'm Hank Parrott, your host. Joining me today, Jeremy Rettich over at Virtue Capital. Jeremy, I've known Jeremy for many, many years. In fact, way back when, I think this has probably been at least 10, maybe 12 years ago, going back on the early days of the show. Jeremy was on a couple of times with us back then, and I've known his family and their company for all these years as well, and kind of been neat to see now at a time when we're kind of coming together in a lot of ways as far as the what we're doing in terms of our market research and with regard to developing portfolios and how we serve our clients and working closely together. I'm one of those areas, as I mentioned, I was not familiar with equal weight indexing until Jeremy and I started having conversations here over the past couple of years, and this is one of those areas as we've gone through it and really researched and how can this improve on the portfolios. And the fact that, as I mentioned, I've been 30 years doing this, and you know, this is why it's so much fun for me, is that there's always something new to learn. There's always new things coming to the forefront to help us improve on the models that we use, and I don't do it lightly. I mean, I look at the research, we do the back testing, we make sure that it's going to fit for what we're looking to accomplish, which again is if we can tweak up the returns a little bit, and in particular reduce the risk at the same time, then that's a winner. And this one with equal weight, Jeremy said, not many, I haven't seen it. Like I said, I hadn't seen it in any company plans. I don't know of any 401ks, certainly not TSP, any other company plans out there that have it, nor have I seen it in any portfolios being utilized by any other advisors. And I look at, you know, Edward Jones, Raymond James, Merrill Lynch, I mean, you name them, all the, you know, Ameriprise, I mean, umpteen different broker-dealers out there that I've seen come across the desk when new people come in and we're doing investment analysis, and I've yet to run into it. So I'm pretty excited about the fact that we're going to be able to bring that to my clients.
Yeah, well, Hank, you're certainly not alone on not knowing about equal weight. I personally think if more investors and more advisors were more familiar at all, that they would consider investing in equal weight for market exposure or blend it with the S&P. And to bring that into perspective, you know, there's 3 different equal weight indexes out there, and collectively they have around $32 billion invested collectively, which is a big number. But if you compare it to the market weight version of the S&P 500 with 2 indexes, SPY and VOO, Vanguard's S&P market weight, those 2 collectively have around $540 billion. So 32 billion-ish for equal weight versus 542 billion. So a big difference. And I just think it's just folks don't know about it. Investors don't, advisors don't. If they did and look back at history, 18-year live track record, back testing going back 70 years, 2% alpha or greater return on equal weight. Again, not one or the other, but the potential of blending them together. So things always evolve, and very quickly in the financial services world, technology world, as well as healthcare. And something we haven't talked about that I'm sure that we'll get into, we've touched on in previous episodes, is part of that 2% greater return for equal weight also gets into sectors, right? There's 11 sectors in the S&P 500. There used to be 10 sectors a few years ago. Real estate got added, making it the 11th. But you look back at those 8 times that the leadership between market weight and equal weight has changed. A lot of that has to do with the weighting of the sectors is also very different between market weight and equal weight. So the stocks are very different. Market weight, it's based on the size of the company. Apple's about 6% of market weight, versus equal weight is 1/500th, right? So 0.02% of each of those companies. So that can play a role, but also sectors as a whole can play a role as well, because your ownership between market weight and equal weight in the sectors are definitely different. So 2 very important things to consider between the 2 independently or blending them together.
Well, and this is on the sectors. This one, that means you're going to be very heavily weighted. Not just, I mean, as we talked about with market weight, the way that works as far as asset categories, and the fact that I've got, or even in number of companies, so we're talking about 25 companies in the S&P having almost half the determinant of performance and risk. So that's not the diversification we're looking for. We want to spread that out over, more equally, and that's where this equal weight index comes in. But the other is on sectors. We don't want to be too overly weighted, meaning too much money in one sector. In particular, when we look back, so as an asset category, large cap growth has been the winner, if you will, over the last 10 years when we look at all the different asset categories available. And when we look at small caps, they've underperformed. So let's say if I'm looking at the S&P 500 index, that's way outperformed the Russell 2000. Now that's unusual. Over the last 10 years, that's been the case. But if you look at the longer view, small caps are normally going to outperform large caps or have over the long term. So we have to keep those in the mix because we don't know necessarily when one's going to be in favor of the other. Now with sectors, think of it another way to slice up the market. I don't want to be too heavily weighted in tech, even though tech's done really well of late, okay? But do I want to I'm going to look forward. I've already missed that boat if I wasn't already in it. Okay. Now, of course, the portfolios we use, we try to have everything in there. And if we're market weighted, we've been, benefiting from the large cap growth as well as from the tech part because we've had them both in the portfolios, of course. But we don't want to be too overly weighted, in particular when we look forward. If something, typically when a particular asset category or particular sector has outperformed for a number of years, then it's more likely to revert to the mean, to the average we're going to see, which means it's likely to underperform going forward. So we need to be conscious of that and be a little more defensive in how we set up our portfolios. And this, Jeremy, is where we want to make sure that we have these things represented, as we've been talking about, in different market conditions, different market periods. One's going to outperform the other. We want to make sure that we have all that in the mix. And of course, just like a good recipe, think of it. I know I've got all my ingredients here, but what comes next? It's not just having the right ingredients. I need to know, right? If the recipe calls for a cup of sugar, well, versus say a quart of sugar or a tablespoon of sugar, there's a big difference in what that's going to do with regard to the outcome. With portfolios, the same thing. It's not just about having, for instance, an equal weight index in there. It's what proportion it should represent on the overall portfolio. And this is where asset allocations we've talked about is the biggest determinant of your returns and your risk. Get it right and you're going to be much more successful. Get it wrong and it could set you up for failure. And so when we're sharing these things with you, it's not to say go out and buy this or buy that. It's more that you're aware that there's some things you need to be maybe more knowledgeable about, and then how to learn more about how to apply those. And of course, we're going to help you with that today. If you call the office at 615-376-5325, if you'd like to get an investment analysis, what you're currently invested, how you're currently invested, and how that compares with the model portfolio. I can almost speak this morning. With the model portfolios that we use, that's all available to you at no cost. So again, call the office, 615-376-5325. We'll do up a comprehensive financial plan, including the investment piece, of course. We'll look at your income, your expenses, your assets, your liabilities. We'll factor in for inflation, for taxes, rates of return on your money. Basically be able to show you your financial future based on what you're currently doing, and then share the strategies that I talk about all the time with you and how to apply them in your, for your personal situation, and how that can then improve that picture for you, that financial future. All right. Imagine being able to know the outcome of your choices of a decision before making it. If you knew, faced with a choice between, as an example, do I take Social Security at 62 or wait until 66 or 67? Okay. Well, if you knew 10, 15, 20 years down the road how that would affect your financial picture, how much money you would have, would it make it easier, right? This one gives me more money, this one less, easy choice. Now, there are other factors that go into it. Well, it's the same with investing. We can show your financial future based on how much you're making now, all the different factors that I put in, what that's going to look like, how much money you'll have, how much security that's going to be for you, and peace of mind, right? Knowing you're not going to have to worry about running out of money, knowing how much you can spend as far as leisure activities, that fun money piece, without worrying about running out of money, other financial goals you might have, maybe for grandkids or kids, whatever it might be, knowing that how to do those and still not have to worry about running out of money based on putting the whole plan together. And it's not just the investment piece. That's an important part, but it's also how do I minimize taxes in those investments? Tax efficiency. It's not just what we make, it's what we keep. So paying less in tax is a good way to do that. It's amazing, well, maybe not so much, but it basically, too many people that I run across all the time are paying more than they're legally required to pay in taxes simply because they don't know the rules. Come learn the rules and we'll help you with that piece as well. So all of that is a part of good planning, and that's what's available if you call the office again, 615-376-5325. When you call in, we'll get your information, send you out a checklist of things to bring to your appointment with me. And when you come in, I'll also give you a free copy of my book, 7 Steps to Financial Freedom in Retirement. One other thing, we've been talking about the portfolios. I've got some additional material available for you. So when you call in, if you'd like to get that, let us know and we can send that out to you. One of those being the stop loss strategy. If we have time, we'll try to touch on that this morning as well. If you'd like to get that white paper, I think it's a 14-page report. Just ask for that, the stop loss strategy. We can send that to you as well. All right, another quick break. Join us here. We'll be right back on the Retirement Report.
The time has come to